This book costs $556.99 today on Amazon.ca. I'm in Canada, so I'm looking at Amazon in Canada. $556.99. I didn't pay that much for this book, but there are reasons why that's happened. As you know, Amazon, a lot of what happens on their website, it's done by computer, and there's algorithms that determine the price based on supply and demand and a number of other factors that I don't understand. And sometimes, while it's working out where the price ought to be and what's appropriate, sometimes the prices look a little funny, like a little excessive or just off completely. $556.99. But the good news is that the book says on the cover that if I work my way through this book, I will be able to understand and speak and read and write Ukrainian with confidence. So I look forward to that. I want to tell you what I'm doing with this book, a really neat project with Richard Simcott, who's quite a well-known polyglot in Macedonia. And he and I are going to do a project together with the Ukrainian language. I have a lot of other Ukrainian textbooks in my library. I'll show you a few. This series here is it's got a really interesting title. It's called Ukrainian. Anyhow, it was done for high school students in Canada, which tells you something interesting about Ukrainian in Canada. The Ukrainian language and Ukrainian immigrants have been very important to the development of my country, and my maternal grandparents are Ukrainian. And so Ukrainian is very influential. Kids learn it in school. It's easy to find people to speak the language with. One of the things that I do that is a little different from Richard, I study languages that I have a chance of actually speaking with real people. I think it's wonderful to study. One of the things he does, it's a little different, is he gets involved in studying languages that are endangered or indigenous languages to promote them and to help people understand the value of these languages, to teach young people that it's cool to speak your indigenous home language. And I think that's great. So he dedicates a lot of time and effort to that. I'm not able to do that. I'm an old man. I'm learning languages that I have a chance to actually use with real people. The languages that I speak really well are languages that I've had a lot of contact with the target language community. And the languages I speak poorly, I just don't know many people who speak those languages. But they're wonderful languages and they're valuable, and I just can't do it. I can't work it into my life. Anyhow, back to textbooks. Here's a good one. Ukrainian grammar. For some people, this kind of a book is dreadful. I love it. I find when I tackle a new language, the ability to use grammar is very helpful. So I can look at Ukrainian and say, okay, what's going on here? Okay, the Ukrainian language has verbs that have conjugation. Well, that's familiar territory to me. I've seen verbs with conjugations before. It's relatively easy in Ukrainian. There's a couple of common patterns, and that's easy. So then when you're talking about nouns and adjectives and stuff like that, even knowing what those things are makes it way easier to use textbooks and learning resources and so on. And then I look at it and say, okay, how do these things work? What are the endings that go on them? What are the patterns that go to it? And if I didn't have any knowledge of grammar, I could do it. I'm sure I could learn the language because people do it all the time, but it would be way harder for an adult who's not learning the language from parents who speak nothing but Ukrainian to him all day long. I have to learn different. I have to learn more quickly. So I like Ukrainian grammar books. Here's a book that came out of the former Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. So it has interesting dialogues in there where I can say things like health to you, comrade, as a great greeting. Not especially modern conversational Ukrainian, but still, it's kind of fun, interesting to look at. If you're interested in learning Ukrainian, first of all, don't worry about the alphabet. You can learn the alphabet in a day or two easily. It's not that hard. But one of the things that you will deal with in written Ukrainian is the fact that the stress on a word is unpredictable. So when you learn a word and you want to know where's the stress, or as we say often in English, we say the accent. We mean the tonic accent. So in English we say object and object. So So the stress in object is on the first syllable. Stress in the second word is object. Stress is on the second syllable. In Ukrainian, you just don't know where the stress is going to be, and it's not written. Unlike Spanish, for example, where you know exactly how to pronounce everything that you see. So these books, the nice thing about these books, even these old ones like this, they have the accent marks written over the top to help foreign people learning the Ukrainian language. Really good. So this is interesting, part of my little collection. And here is probably my absolute favorite Ukrainian textbook. It's called Conversational Ukrainian by an author named Yar Slavutich. This book was published in Canada. And so when I read the dialogues in here, it talks about places that I've actually been. And it uses words that I can remember my grandparents saying. And it's full of phrases and expressions and conversations that I would actually use. So I'm not especially interested in learning lists of words about things that I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about gardening, hardly at all. So I just don't care about a list of flowers or a list of all the animals in the zoo. I am not going to talk about giraffes in Ukrainian. It's just not going to be part of that world. But this book is full of stuff that I will talk about. Talking about my family, talking about making conversation with friends, talking about my home, all kinds of really useful stuff. And there's a lot of it. Like, you can see how big this book is. I don't know if it'll show up on my webcam, but that's what the pages look like. So they're really loaded with information. They're very, very dense. It's not a lot of colorful pictures and blank pages and filler pages and crossword puzzles and games and stuff. It's just loaded with information. And here, if you really want a good, brutal grammatical attack of the language, here we go. Ukrainian grammar. This is the grammar book that will separate the men from the boys, or whoever. So it's just loaded with exercises and explanations of the Ukrainian language from a grammatical point of view. It's pretty thick, and it's this is not for the faint of heart. But what I like about it is, if I'm trying to learn something that's really different in Ukrainian from my first language, which is English, or any of the other languages I speak, I can look at a chapter and get a lot of information about that particular feature of the language. For example, the instrumentative case doesn't exist in the other languages that I speak. I've tackled Russian a little bit, so I've seen it before. But I can look in this grammar book and I can do a whole chapter on the instrumentative case. How does it work? When would I use it? What does it look like? And how can I work this into my normal speech so that I sound normal when I speak Ukrainian? It's difficult when you use textbooks to not sound like a textbook when you talk. So I'm having conversations with a lovely young lady from Kiev, and she and I speak Ukrainian, and one of the things that she watches out for is when I start sounding like a very formal conversation from a textbook and say things like "health to you, comrade," and so on. So anyhow, that's the project. So what I'm doing with Richard Simcott, Richard is a very, very accomplished polyglot, and people who are interested in languages have probably seen his videos on YouTube. Really, really interesting stuff. You learn something every time you watch one of his videos. The last one was fantastic, where the title of it, I think, was "I Speak More Than 50 Languages." And that video was just loaded with practical, useful information for anybody who's interested in learning more languages. But Richard and I, who are both passionate language learners, and I'm a teacher especially, been teaching since 1994, but he and I are going to work our way through this book, and neither of us paid $556.99 for it, which is the price on Amazon today. Anyhow, great book. We've got the audio that goes with it, so we can listen to the dialogues that are contained in the book. And we've decided that what we're going to do is going to work our way through the book completely. Richard told me that he has often worked through textbooks from beginning to end. He starts at the beginning and works his way to the last page of the book. We were talking about how I have so many books. As you can see behind me, I have 3,500 books in my home. Probably 2,000 of them are language learning books. And I said to Richard, I've got all these books, and there's only a handful of them that I've actually worked through from absolute beginning to end. I've used them all, but beginning to end, no. So I'm going to do the Richard Simcott thing, and I'm going to try and look as smart as Richard. And he and I are both going to tackle this book, and we're going to do the whole book from cover to cover. And he will use the strategies that he has used before, which I don't know all of them. And I'm going to use the strategies that I've used that I found very successful, including something called Gold List, which was created by David James, another interesting polyglot. So we're going to document that. Richard and I are going to talk every Monday, and I will post a video either on Monday or on Tuesday of our progress, how we're doing, where we're at, and what strategies we're taking, and just document the whole thing. And then a number of months down the road, I hope that we'll be able to do a video of a conversation with someone who speaks Ukrainian and does not speak English at all. And we'll just find out, where are we at? Can we, as this book promises, speak this language, read it, write it, understand it with confidence? It'll be fun to see. So follow me, subscribe to my channel, and click like on my video. All of those things help for anybody who's making videos, but I really appreciate that. And I'd like to connect with you, and you can just see how this whole project goes. So Simcott and Swayne set their eyes on Ukraine. Here we go. Look forward to seeing you every week. Bye for now.